It is funny playing with August, where it's like how powerful the cards are in the 60 deck versus 20, where it's like find any card you want and like go to a photocopier and make 6 copies.
I gave my son fake Pokemon cards to sell at school. All right, we are live. So
Hello,
your
everybody.
crimes have been streamed.
That's fine.
All right. Hello there, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tapcaf Transmissions. I'm Corey, joined as always by the other guy who's hustling Pokemon cards on the schoolyard. It's Justin. How are you doing today, Ek?
I'm good. I'm good. Made 35 cents net profit today,
Nice.
not including the gas.
Yeah, the
But
Sharpies, it's a big startup cost. You need a lot of Sharpies.
yeah, I also
No,
went to Staples. I didn't. Yeah.
I wasn't gonna say that, but since you guys brought it up, surprised they allow Justin close to school. But I guess it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long that's allowed after they see him with his trench
Listen,
coat out
okay, listen.
there.
Look at that guy with his beard.
Listen, I'm not gonna like publish your Facebook photos, the one that I used for that Photoshop thing,
I don't remember which one that was.
the squad thing.
Squad?
I'm gonna share this.
Okay, well, as you can hear, also joining us for our new Jedi Order retrospective episode is Mr. Ilkin of the Kings and Generals channel, as well as Wizards and Warriors. So he was with us for
And
and
what about his World War II channel or Cold War
the
channel?
Cold War,
Yeah.
his World War II channel, the Cold War. Justin's
Not
clearly not a viewer.
Well, I don't watch that one.
I just kind of
Only-
group that with Kings and Generals. I think of it as Kings and Generals presents the Cold War. I don't know. Maybe that's
Oh, yeah.
a me problem. But how are you doing, Elkin? If we're just going to talk over you.
I was okay, but then I started being on this call, and now I'm less okay.
Yeah, well, you've avoided every other call with us for months other than the Unifying Force episode. So
Because
he
it
was
was
with
about
us.
unifying force, unifying.
We're all finally back together. He was with us for Vector Prime, for Star by Star, and for Unifying Force. So you weren't on any of the other ones, were you? I don't think so.
No, that's just it.
There was a point where I had this goal to, like, oh, we'll have more people on as guests for Tapcaf talking about different books. They can choose it. But then no one wants to talk tech anymore. So it's.
I've been soft canceled. All my YouTuber friends have unfollowed me. All the Star Wars authors. This part is true. Every single Star Wars author except maybe Michael Stackpole. Every active Star Wars author who followed me
He's
unfollowed me.
just old and doesn't know how to unfollow. Otherwise, he would have
That might be
unfollowed
true.
you.
That might be true. There was also what's his name? Not Dan Wallace. One of the other Legends sourcebook guys or encyclopedia guys still follows me.
Oh, Jason Fry?
Jason Fry, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
He's going to use you for encyclopedia, like not to do going forward.
Yeah, so I got soft canceled. It's okay. I was invited. Unfortunately, I cannot go, but I will give it a little plug. I was invited to Legends Con 2 by Joe, Supernatural Encounters Joe. So I will take a second. It's in Arlington, Texas, March 15th to 16th, I believe. You could just go to, I think it's legendscon.com. Troy Denning will be there, Michael Stackpole, Kevin J. Anderson, Shannon McRandall, who is Mara Jade, her model, Barbara Hambley, which I would love to meet Barbara just to see what's going on. Like how did, I want to ask her point blank whether Children of the Jedi was initially another story. Dan Wallace and some others. So I just thought they were very nice to invite me. I cannot go. Maybe for number 3.
Why do you think they decided to invite you?
I mean, I think I'm the biggest Legends YouTuber.
Okay.
Like, I do mostly Legends stuff. Like, Star Wars Theory does, I'd say, more canon stuff. So I think I'm the biggest Legends, mainly Legends YouTuber.
Sorry, who is Star Wars Theory?
Yeah, a small channel. Probably never heard of him.
I just never heard them doing any like TV at all on Star Wars. But whatever.
Yeah,
It is what it is.
yeah.
I've never heard of that channel, so I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just a small little channel.
Oh, little guy.
It's a tiny little channel.
Okay, so we are talking about New Jedi Order. We're going to talk about the series as a whole, kind of the impact it had on Star Wars, how we feel about the series, kind of just a group decompression session. I think something we talked about a lot in the episode on the Unifying Force was whether the series needed to be this long. It was 19 books long, plus there's the comics that came out later. But, well, first, I think you guys are both in the camp of it is too long. So if you want to go into that a bit more before I absolutely destroy you with facts and logic.
I don't agree. I don't think it's too long. I just think like they needed to use the length better. Like I think it's a massive war story.
Never mind.
Like 19 books, I don't think is too much. I think maybe it could have benefited from High Republic style storytelling where like a lot of the books end up being essentially side quests, which I think maybe they could have helped the readers out a bit by keeping more of the main plot to specific books, but I don't think it was too long. I just think like it could have been a bit more, I guess, streamlined. Like it could have been longer, and it should have had more tie-in stuff. But it wasn't really the era of that, I guess.
Ilkin?
So it's nice to see Justin backtracking from his previous stance.
But I'm not having to read it right now, so
Jokes aside,
He's really softened on it.
the world happens across like 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah, 4 or 5 is probably.
Yeah. So thing is, like, I feel like I agree that they could have used the 19 book better, but at the same time, it's not enough time for most events to take place without side plots. Like for instance, the easiest one, Jason's captivity, right? Or the turning of Coruscant into Yuuzhan Tar. You need like some time to pass here in order for it to make sense. And like especially Jason's captivity and Yuuzhan Tar's transformation, there's not much to talk about. Like it's transformation and it's torture, right? And there's not much going on. You can't talk about torture like for 5 books. So I kind of see why they went on so many side plots and side quests. Overall, I feel like some plot points were repeated a bit too often. There was a bit of a, I guess, one step forward and one step back in terms of Republic's response. There was too much said about refugee crisis without doing much with it. The first third had too much about the droids, which was more or less dropped by the end of it. So some ideas basically worked and some didn't, and they dropped the ones that didn't, I guess. But overall, 19 books are too long, and I don't have a good example of a person who have read these 19 books and nothing else from Star Wars, but I would say that most people would have difficult time getting into it right now.
yeah, that's why like I agree with what you're saying about like Jason needed time being tortured, and like the best way to show passage of time is to have other books. Like I think that's one thing the High Republic does pretty well, where you'll have like 4 main books, and you really do feel the passage of time between those books. Even I feel like even if you don't read the side stories, and maybe part of that is because there often is like 6 months to a year released or between releases. Um, but yeah.
Like there definitely is a feeling once you get to Star by Star that like the droid plot kind of goes by the wayside. The refugee plot kind of goes by the wayside, like you're talking about, Ilkin. But like it does almost feel like after Star by Star, things get very compressed. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
really good.
how much of that might have to do with when stuff was written, because Star by Star came out like just after 9/11, I think, right? And then Dark
I
Journey
don't
came
know.
out like 6 months later, so Dark Journey was probably being written around that time. So I don't know if 9/11 changed how much they were going to be focusing on different things. But I'm also not sure how much time they would have had to wrap up some of those plots properly. Because yeah,
Yeah.
the refugee crisis definitely influenced the start of the story, but it's not something that we really do get a resolution to, and it just kind of turns into this background thing in Dark Nest where they're still trying to get people settled. We don't really know what the scope of the issue is. Stuff like Coruscant kind of does get walked back.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because in like I think in Darknet, like yeah, in Darkness, that's one of the big like conflicts is like, oh, the Ithorians want a planet, everyone wants a planet, but I think part of the issue is like I don't know if the war really lends itself well to like I just think like oh we could have had lots of cool like young reader novels set in this time, which could have like a Droid Revolution young reader series
So
would have been what?
I think you're a huge fucking hypocrite, Justin.
Why is that? I mean,
Overall,
undoubtedly, I
What
am.
is your complaint about the High Republic?
I've got multiple complaints with the High Republic.
I feel like what you're suggesting they should have done with NJO there is what High Republic
But
is, and
I
it's one
don't
of the things you
complain.
complain about with High Republic.
I don't think I complain about the young reader novels specifically in the High Republic. Like I liked that one that about the rock and the ship
Well,
and
I
the
think
tree.
like the problem you've expressed with the approach is that there are these different stories, and you're not sure how the young reader stuff connects to the other stuff. Where like yeah, they're doing some different stuff. The Drengir is semi related to what the Nile are doing. Earlier on, it's less clear how. But I feel like that's the kind of side story you'd have to tell to not really interrupt the flow of the war in the adult stories, and then having those characters kind of pop into the other books would be how you get the kind of character bloat that we both kind of struggle with in the High Republic. So
Yeah, like
I don't know that it would work that much better.
well, I think okay, my issue with the High Republic is like the schizophrenic storytelling, where like as you mentioned, the Drengir are a thing that are brought up in the young reader novels. You get a bit of them in the main books, but like I don't know. I feel like the plot kind of led nowhere.
It's a much bigger
Um,
part of Phase 3. Like the Nile are doing stuff with them in Phase
yeah,
3. So it is
fair enough.
coming together there. You just didn't read it.
Fair enough. I didn't read some of it. My main issue is like with the High Republic is it feels kind of directionless. And like
wasn't written in the 90s.
what's that?
Wasn't written in the 90s.
Exactly. It wasn't written in the 90s. I don't find the story compelling, and I like the characters, but there are too many of them. So maybe that would have been an issue if they'd done a young reader thing. But like, I think that they had the template for success with like the Young Jedi Knight series, where, um, if you read them, you get a nice benefit to the characters. They did introduce a lot. To be fair, in my complaint, they did introduce a lot of new characters, which who the hell is what's a Tahiri Vela? Although I guess she was not even Young Jedi Knights, she was Junior Jedi Knights. But what's a Zek? Like, what's a Lobaka? So maybe you're right, but maybe I'm biased because I like Legends more, I
Well,
guess.
that's why I said 90s, right?
It is harder to make that comparison too, because like the Young Jedi Knights and Junior Jedi Knights books, they're not concurrent with anything else, right? Like they're set in that space between the treaty and the New Jedi Order. So there's not other books that are coming out telling a coherent story beside them that they're like a companion to. They're in this like, oh, the war's over. There's these other weird war like
Yeah, I don't
they
think that matters. Like, I
they
think you
they
could
were
have
put
said
there
it
later,
in
but
yeah, like you could set it in 18 BBY, 18 ABY, or as long as the age works. I don't think that necessarily matters as much.
they also they weren't tied into the other things. Like part of why it
Yeah.
works is that, like, if you read Jaina and Jason in Corellian Trilogy, it's not Jaina and Jason in Young Jedi Knights, age difference aside. Like, like Han in the Corellian Trilogy, his whole plot is like, how do I not insult Jason for being lazy and fat? Like, they're very different places. But I just don't know what side story. So the original plan with the series was like there's the 5 hardcovers that tell like this is the need to read stuff, and the rest fill in those other kinds of stories. So it sounds like that kind of was what their plan was. But I think the more you try to go down that road, it's hard to not have those things just feel inconsequential if they're not doing it the way that NJO is. Ilkin, you were going to say something, I think.
I was gonna say regarding the High Republic. Basically, it does the same thing more or less. Like most of the characters who are in the High Republic junior books, they feature in the main books, but like side characters, not the main characters. So to an extent, it does like its own story, which can be read on its like own separately. Again, like I'm not gonna like argue paste, but for High Republic, I would say that having a few more books would have been much better. Like especially the fact that in the second phase they went back in time. It kind of decreased the number of required books that I would thought you need to tell the story in a good way.
I think the High Republic also is fighting a bit of an uphill battle where all of the characters are new. So I think there's like less grounding to the source, like to the like actual like movies, the source material. Like, you know, I can miss a bit of I could miss a High Republic book and say, okay, Han and Leia are fighting aliens. Like I get it. Where like I pick up I'm like, what's a Zel Betafar? What is this? I know it's Bell Setafar or whatever his name is, but
He's getting canceled again. He's getting
I
canceled
actually
again.
I really like that character, so I don't know why I'm.
Yeah, I think the thing to do there would be, I forget who it was that gets captured on the way out of that space, and there's those scenes on the slave ship with the Yamisk. It's not Miko Reglia. It might be Ganner.
Yeah,
It might be Ganner. But like, if you got some side stories where some of the war gets shifted to like Ganner's perspective in these other kind of books, then that could be a way to do some of it and just focus on like the Jaina, Jason, and Anakin story and like the core stuff you need to read. But I think part of that with both New Jedi Order and the High Republic, like a lot of that comes down to, maybe it was Worth Skitter, but with New Jedi Order, I think was probably, we were reading that at a time where we were much more able to just like say, this is the thing I like and this is what I'm going to devour. Like this is what my whole life is for the next 6 months, compared to now when like the sheer amount of media you need to keep up with to really keep up with something just is more of an imposition at our age. So it's harder to say like what is fundamentally different versus what is different in our ability to perceive it.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Another problem with New Jedi Order, especially in the like last third, they kind of introduce stuff later in the game. For instance, this super anti-Jedi fighter, right? They are introduced like 2 books.
Yeah, last or second to last, I can't remember.
It might be, yeah, they're like this shadowy thing in Final Prophecy, and then they're in like 3 pages of Unifying Force, so they can be someone for Luke to fight.
Yeah, it's I don't like stuff like that. It's a bit like what's the word I'm looking for? Like trying to shoehorn something in late in the game, you know. And since you mentioned 9/11, it's kind of interesting that unlike the rest of the Legends, NGO kind of became a bit more nuanced in terms of like invaders. Like especially the second half of the New Jedi Order, you kind of started getting more like explanation why the Yuuzhan Vong are the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
and
get that with like the
first few books.
or the Avathans or the Siruvi.
Even when they show up in NJO too, like it's like, oh, these are
They
just
still
these are the evil culture.
they actually suck more now. Have you considered your culture is just not good?
I mean, that is fundamentally the thesis of NJO still, of like
Yeah.
their culture is rotten, but they're not biologically rotten. But
We can save them.
yeah.
Us galactic saviors can.
So like there is definitely that element of it, but I don't know if that element changed either, like if they weren't going to explore that, but it does become like the Yuuzhan Vong characters definitely become more interesting after Star by Star. Like Nominor becomes more interesting. There's the Shaper. Is it Kila Quad? Is that
Quad, yeah. Or is it Keela Quad or the other one?
Nenyim is the best one.
Nenyim, yeah,
But there
Nenyim.
was
Like they become more nuanced
yeah.
in general, which is good. But like I remember when I was first reading the ending of New Jedi Order, my feeling was that uh, the idea of Rogue Planet came kind of late.
Yeah, I still feel like it's kind of
Like
like
it wasn't like super planned that there will be some kind of redemption through the planets that banish them from the Force at some point.
I felt like that too when I was reading it this time. Like I was waiting for like Xenoma Seacot to be mentioned, and like I still feel like it kind of went from 0 to 100, where it was like this is like everything. And it is like kind of you know a plot device brought in relatively late in this, probably like book 14 or 15. I mean, I can't even remember when it's
Like
first, but that's when like
before that, they kind of start talking like we can't defeat them by force. Blah blah.
yeah,
When I say force, I mean force with small f, right?
yeah.
We can't defeat them by force. We can't like destroy them. We can't genocide them, etc. They're talking about it, but like both in meta terms and inside the story itself, they're kind of searching for the way to defeat the Yuuzhan Vong. You know what I mean? And I feel like the idea of Xenomosekat was like super late addition, maybe super late decision.
It is kind of like ultimately the answer is deport them. So send them back where they came from.
That's what I say.
Oh my gosh, no,
Not
I don't like that.
no. Because
Don't let Donald read these fucking books. I swear to God.
all like they say like, oh well, they don't want to be here. No one wants them around, and I think Legacy at least interacts with that a bit more. That idea of how like the Sith were preying on this kind of prejudice against the Yuuzhan Vong for what had happened in the Yuuzhan Vong War, and was able to easily use that to frame them for what the Sith were doing. Because like I guess the Sith were more trustworthy than the Yuuzhan Vong, I guess. But I think that probably checks out with how these kinds of shitty movements work. So maybe,
Yeah.
but it's very like it. Ultimately, the way everything is framed is very like neolib in NJO. But
Yeah. We don't have to kill them. We're better than that. Let's just send them outside the galaxy.
but also we're going to stay cooperating very closely with the people who say we should kill them all, and this is just an idea we're keeping on the table.
Listen, yes, we developed a bioweapon that kills perhaps all life in the galaxy. Yes, we considered using it. No, we didn't actually use it except for one time, and no, we didn't actually punish anyone for it. Yeah, it's not like the greatest philosophy ever.
I think Diffscore did have to quietly retire with his pension.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think that gets mentioned. But we do
he probably should have
have
been shot in the back of the head somewhere, but
we do have two questions from Joel. First one kind of goes back to what we were talking about a couple minutes ago of, is the High Republic the current generation of Star Wars fan equivalent NJO? Like, I don't know that it holds the same position.
yeah, I don't think so because it doesn't use the same characters, and I don't think it's meant to either.
I
Even
think
beyond
the new lore is structured a bit differently. Uh, Instead of long series, it's still in its early era where we get trilogies upon trilogies. Like if you look at the way legends were written, the first like half or more the half books were like either standalones or short trilogies, right? Most of what we got
I think
like
all
Korean.
trilogies are the same length.
Sorry.
You said short trilogies.
Well, short. I mean, in terms of like events that are happening, like
Okay. I
Karelian
was
Crisis.
just busting your balls.
Thank you for fondling them. I appreciate it. Karelian Trilogy, for instance, takes place across like a few months, right? And like the new lore is kind of in the same position right now. It kind of tells trilogies mostly. And like my favorite thing probably about the new lore is the events surrounding the Battle of Jakku. We now have like 50 different perspectives of the battle. And like as a historian, for me, this is very fun. I think some fans don't like it, but like for me, it's really interesting. We still are to get something like NGO in the new lore. My point is.
Yeah, like I think the different, so they're equivalent in that they are like the big publishing thing of their time, but I think the thing that makes NJO what it is and like that kind of dominates any discussion about NJO is that NJO was what Star Wars was at that time, like leading up to Episode 1 coming out. Like this was not just the big publishing thing, this was the publishing thing. This is what Star Wars was going to be. It was a big tonal shift. It was what was happening to the main characters. Whereas the High Republic, while it is a big project, like no one was going in wondering what would happen to Stellan, Elzar, and Evar. Like not in the no one cares about these, but like you go in and that's when you learn about them. And when High Republic ends, that's kind of when their stories will end as well. And will be on like it's not locking them into anything else after THR. Whereas with NJO, like this was going to be the fate of Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, and setting up the Solo kids as like the next generation of Star Wars. And so it doesn't have the same linchpin position that NJO did, even if the mechanics of it as a publishing project are kind of comparable.
Yeah, on this topic, I know that I forget the name of the channel, but there's let me find it. There's like a new Jedi Order documentary that's being released. You said you started watching some of it, right, Corey?
Yeah, it's a bunch of interviews put together.
Holonet is the YouTube channel, and he's on like he or she, I don't know, just released part 5. So there's like 10 hours so far, or part 4 actually. So there's like 8 hours almost of behind the scenes stuff about the new Jedi Order with the authors and stuff. So I think some of it's I think new interviews too. So if you're really interested, you got lots to watch. And I'm glad someone's doing the archive work.
Yeah. It's good to have it all compiled into here. All right, Salvatore,
Yeah, like
talk about
ideally,
all
I
the
would
people
have.
harassing him.
Someone's harassed. Who's harassing him?
Everyone was harassing him at the time
Who?
for killing Chewie. The fan
Oh,
response.
yeah.
Like it was his decision.
Yeah.
If you have read any Salvatore, and I'm guilty of reading Salvatore because like if I need to pick up something easy, Salvatore books are super easy, super
Yeah, and he's got like 1 million books.
yeah, it's great flow in setter. Like one thing about his characters, he never kills anyone.
Yeah.
Like you would know that if you have read any Salvatore at all. So I'm quite sure that he didn't decide to kill Chewie at all.
Yeah, like the way he describes it, he was against it, but like came around to the idea, but it's Stackpole and the editors and Lucino that were
Yeah,
like more
I
on it.
understand that they wanted to give the vibe of it's not
Yeah.
your father's Star Wars. It's like dark and edge, etc. I can see that point of view, and it kind of did raise the stakes, but then by the end of it, like especially the Star Wars Coruscant, etc., you see the stakes are going nowhere again.
Yeah. So
Which is understandable. You need some kind of status quo to continue writing books, right?
what I'm curious about is like, what are your guys' not necessarily best, but like say 3 most memorable moments from the entire series?
Okay, you can go first.
I can go first if you want, because I thought about
Okay,
this
go
earlier.
ahead.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
For me, the first one would be the duel for Ithor. I love that moment. Second would be the Lusankia bombing the shit out of what planet are they on again?
Orleus,
Orleus, yeah.
Emperor's Hammer.
Yeah, the Emperor's Hammer. And then I'll count the world ship Ram in that as well. And then I think I like in terms of memorable, I think all of Vector Prime. I think they do a good job of like making it seem weird and different, and there's not very much in Legends where you get that. Like kind of the beginning of Dark Empire, you get that a little bit. Where it's like, wow, this is really different, and it's setting up something that's going to be big, and like this is the first step of what's going to be a huge epic. So yeah, those would be my 3 personally.
Go ahead, Corey.
Okay. For some reason, I always think about the droid pit.
That's a
I
good
think
one.
it's around Sleeshag.
Mhm.
Also, like the Mercury mission, like
Mhm.
Anakin dying specifically. Everyone's dragged away. Jovan
Mhm.
Drark. Something about Jovan Drark stands out. The Rhodian sniping. Uh, and Vergere trolling Luke in Destiny's Way. The I. That part.
Yeah, when she's is that when she's like sleeping in his apartment as well?
I think it's more when she's still in custody and they're doing their question for a question thing.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, because
But
later she's like, I just imagine her like curled up like Murphy
yeah,
on the floor, or
right.
like Kazoo.
Ilkin, your turn. Thank you
So
for.
probably like when I was reading it, I was like in my early teens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the in I forgot the name, Mika Reglia, right? The breaking of Mika Reglia in the first book, it's kind of like very
Yeah, that part's pretty
memorable.
disturbing.
Sorry,
Mhm.
very
That part's
disturbing.
pretty disturbing when they're
Yeah,
like deep under the ice and it's just
and
awful.
like obviously you think the Jedi are these superheroes, etc. No one can kill a Jedi, blah blah blah. And then it happens, and it's like really sets a tone, really in a good way.
Mhm.
Obviously, the second would be like mirror to it. The Gunner Rysot's duel against like 10 million Yuuzhan Vong.
Well, the world brain.
Yeah, when he tries to like I don't know, maybe he tries to redeem himself. Maybe he tries to allow Jason to escape, and Jason kind of manipulates him into that, if I'm not mistaken, which is really interesting in terms of future events. I don't know if it was written to show that Jason can manipulate someone to die, basically, or not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the third is about the droids. I I really liked the plot about the battle droids created by Lando.
Well, the
Unfor-
YVH droids.
yeah, unfortunately, it was dropped in the middle of the series, more or less.
Well,
Like,
There's a
they
lot of
basically
things.
win the war. Like they're
yeah,
just the private industry comes to save us.
but like I just like that just juxtaposition of like this droids in the pit and then droids are
Yeah.
fighting.
Stomping like Yuuzhan Vong's skulls out.
Yeah. So it's
Mhm.
just I remember when I was reading for the first time, this juxtaposition really was enticing to me.
That'd be a fun little short story, like droids who have like gone mad during the Yuuzhan Vong War. They haven't got their memory wipes and they're under extreme duress, and then they start worshipping like a YVH droid, which comes and saves them. That'd be, like, imagine like Gonk droids, R2 units, mouse droids, like worshipping like some random YVH droid, which couldn't give two shits about them. It's just
That's
like
a good
out for
one.
blood.
You should write a High Republic book.
I don't think they had YVH droids back then. I think YVH droids would have taken care of a lot of problems, though.
Luke and Mara getting to spend their day gossiping about their coworkers also stands out. Destiny's
Luke has
Way as a whole, like, just almost everything from that book stands out to me, even if some of it is kind of cringe.
They really want you to know that Luke is having sex.
Yes.
Which one is Jaina inviting her suitors and basically saying that she's the best girl in the galaxy? Is it in this series?
That's more Dark Nest, I think.
Yeah.
Is it in Dark? Overall, I felt like Jaina plot lines were probably the weakest of the main characters. Especially the fact that they dropped her whole connection with Yuuzhan Vong by the end of it.
Mm.
At least that's what that's how I saw it.
She does
Was
end
there-
up getting kind of a backseat to Jason by the end, yeah. But like you were saying, though, I do like how much you can go through. I don't think it was intentional. I don't think any of them are thinking we're going to make Jason Darkseid. But like, there's a lot of stuff you can see that is consistent with the idea that he is going to be severely fucked up by the war, and that plus his ideals are going to lead to bad things.
Well, that's why Darkness is so weird to me. Like when Darkness starts, you feel like Jason is perfectly okay.
Yeah. No, he's creepy. He's got like a Rasputin vibe.
He's creepy, but like he's not crazy like he's at the start of his series.
Is
He's
it
a little
Joiner King where he
crazy with-
fucking fries Ta-Chum's mind?
Okay. No.
Well, that's not till Legacy of the Force.
Yeah, I think it happens in Legacy. Yeah.
Legacy of the Force?
Then he kills what's his name?
Like it happens
He
after
kills a
the
soldier in Legacy of the Force, but I
Pretty
don't.
sure he does both.
both. It
Because-
happens after the assassination attempt on Tunnel.
Yeah.
I remember it like that.
I'm pretty sure. I think
Another
Yeah,
memorable
I'm double-
thing is
I'm-
Lando buying the elections, which is really funny saying right now.
doesn't Jason open Dark Nest by flow walking? Like that's how I started to feel like, okay, like things are a little weird with Jason right now.
No, it's an Unseen Queen that she tries to
Okay.
assassinate Alana, so Jason gives her a brain hemorrhage.
Tough. She deserved it though. I hate that
Yeah,
woman.
yeah.
Yeah, like-
like
I'm not saying he's
Whatever.
wrong. It's just
He was
wasn't-
real for that.
He was,
I understand, Cole, you don't like
I actually
grandmas
don't think that
anymore.
was dark side. I think that was pretty light side thing
he
to
actually
do.
opened his KOTOR menu right after that, and he'd gone up in the
You
alignment
don't
chart.
understand. It's not force
Ooh.
lightning. It's
If you
force
stand like that-
electricity. It's okay.
It's electric judgment.
Yeah, it's okay.
Now, how did the
Fucking-
light side guys stand in KOTOR? The dark side guys are like,
Looks like they haven't slept in a few days. That's
Yeah.
dark side. But we had another
I will-
question from
Oh.
Joel, who says, do you think the NJO was hurt by the fact that Lucasfilm kind of abandoned it after the era was over and none of it bled into other work after 2005?
I mean,
Like when it
2000.
says another work, like publishing side on TV or movies, etc.
I guess anything. Like I think it does definitely influence a lot of publishing.
Yeah.
Let's keep in mind the Unifying Force released in 2003, so they had plenty of time to do shit with it. The series after that.
Yeah, like I think it does. Like I think a lot of the stuff in Dark Nest, they try to walk back. Like they walk back the impact of a lot of it, of like how it changes the status quo for the galaxy. But I feel like any lack of emphasis on it is more that just the prequels were so much more attention grabbing. So there was going to be like Republic Commando made more sense to focus on, and then Legacy kind of ties into it a lot more. But
Yeah.
If anything, a Yuuzhan Vong game would have been really good. Like you
Yeah.
can probably make that game today some kind of like Even like isometric RPG, something like that.
It's just
Would
Jedi
work.
Knight, Jedi Outcast, but none of your force powers work.
Yeah. I think
When
the
I say
main problem
Yuuzhan
is
Vong
the
game,
aesthetic is so like Star Wars' main strength is like its visual identity,
Yeah.
and you lose all of that when you get to New Jedi Order. And like the Vong, like they're ultimately kind of generic. I think like I don't like Vong designs. I don't like biotech. I don't think it necessarily looks good for Star Wars. Um, that's not to say like I don't like it. I find it. I think a game would be kind of miserable
but
where you're spending like I'm thinking
if you
of
think about it, like if you deconstruct it back, like if someone gives you a prompt, create a perfect enemy for a Jedi who is not Sith Dark Jedi. Wouldn't someone who is not affected by the Force be one of the best ways to do it?
yeah. I'm not even saying that's not the case, but I'm just thinking about like what it would look like.
Okay.
Like I'm thinking about the level Cortana in Halo 3, where you go inside the Flood, where you go inside High Charity, and you just half the level is going through wall sphincters. Like that's what a new Jedi Order game would probably be like. It'd be a lot of fleshy colored walls, a lot of sphincters, no force powers. Well, some force powers, but yeah.
Well, they were considering doing a prequel where the Jedi or where the galaxy the Yuuzhan Vong try to invade first is the Flintstones galaxy, and that's why the Flintstones have all the like the toilet that it's like a pelican or something, and then it just looks at the camera and says it's a living after someone shits in
Flip it.
I actually like this.
it.
Yeah, the Flintstones won a hard-fought war against the Yuuzhan Vong for
They
sure.
allied with Vufi Ra.
Yeah, I could,
They
I could
had
get on
access to the tense cortex.
that.
But
The 10th
I
cortex is running your feet on the ground and saying yabba dabba do, and you move really quickly.
I think that kind of gets to what might be a potential trade-off, I guess, when doing this kind of like very serialized content versus the Bantam era. We're all kind of ending up back where we were. Where like not only do you have to follow stuff more, like any change in tone, you need a change in tone if it's going to matter, or like
Yep.
not necessarily a change in tone, but like things need to change if any of it's going to matter.
Yep.
But then you're not where you started, and you're going to be turning people off. Is there like as these universes get more expansive, is that just fundamentally a thing that's always going to be a problem, or is there a way to avoid that?
I was thinking about that. Funny, I was thinking about that in terms of ground battles for Empire at War. Where like I was thinking about your work as like modders for ground battles, right? Where it's like people don't like ground battles in Empire at War, so they don't really get it. They don't get engaged in them. So if you want to change ground battles and make them interesting, you've got to divert really wildly from the base format. But like because people hate ground battles so much, if you divert wildly, they're not going to put the time into it to learn them, and like they're just going to not like the result. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, they're just ground battles and I'm not taking the time to learn it, so it's miserable. My analogy's falling off the rails a little bit, but I think it's kind of the same thing where like it's hard to get people really involved in something that's so different from from what Star Wars usually is. And the Yuuzhan Vong certainly were different. I think they could have like I do think like the idea of I just think they did too much with the Vong were too different in a way that it felt like they were different for being different. I would have preferred like an alien invader. Maybe they're still like masochistic or whatever else, but maybe they like I don't think like being against anti-force or they're not affected by the force and they love pain and they have biotechnology and they have this rigid caste system. I don't think you need to do all of that.
Okay, can see that. Like to an extent, give it a very like early version of Yuuzhan Vong, right? They were extremely aggressive and what else? Also caste system. No, caste system was Cerulean, right?
See Revere cast, yeah, they've got
Yeah.
like different scale colors.
So almost every like evil alien species is given a caste system. Just Kaminoans are given a caste system in
Yes,
Republic
they're
Commando True
evil.
Colors.
And clone troopers also have caste system.
It's Star Wars alien design is just Orientalism. Why?
Yeah.
Again, it's really difficult to create something new. Like when you write something fantasy, sci-fi, you always end up writing something that exists with a different spin.
They have they're evil aliens. They're not like anything we've ever seen. They have a caste system and turbans.
White folk, you are going to be uncomfortable.
So they gave turban to what's her face, Lumaya.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has a
But
kind
hers
of
is like a injured
different kind of head
turban.
wrapping, but
Yeah. But yes. Shockingly, yes.
And I say, ashamed.
because in the first in the first part of that NJO documentary, like Lucino was talking about how like South America or Central American cultures were kind of what inspired the Yuuzhan Vong for him aesthetically and culturally and everything.
I don't know if I love that.
But so yeah, that has its own stuff that you could talk about, but it's also like the way the art was depicted and then like the direction it took, especially in the context of like what political debates of the day were. Like there's very clearly other cultural influences that they were going for that yeah, that's kind of just always how
I
that
think
kind of
that's
development is going to be.
for me. The problem is most of it doesn't make sense. Like if
No.
the Yuuzhan Vong are some kind of like representative of the Muslims, like you already changed the religion and made it so incomprehensible that entire symbology loses its
But
point.
I don't know that it's the intent. I think it's that it's basically the idea that the culture of the time was so engrossed in the whole like clash of civilizations idea that this was how you wrote a conflict. Like this is if you're looking for like you're at the end of the Cold War and then there's all these ideas of like uh the next conflict is between like the Christian world versus the Muslim world. And like, okay, so this idea of religion being a central part of these conflicts is already at the forefront. And then once you're in that headspace, when you're like, oh, how if we're going to be in this religious conflict, what does this look like? What does that look like? And you get these kind of like uh, mimetic ideas of what another culture could be that are filtered through the fact that like these are people in the United States and what their idea of weird alien culture might be is going to be informed by what they're being told is a weird alien culture right now or different portrayals of different cultures. So that's kind of the only basis you have to build anything on. And so that's what kind of ends up in there. So even if you have this intent for like, oh, we were going for South American, but we're also dealing with like multiple people who are bringing their own ideas to it.
Now
So
that you
it's
said that, I kind of think that some of the art does look like Aztecs.
yeah, like that's what the original influence was. I
Okay.
saw someone call the Yuuzhan Vong like reptilian and scaly on Twitter. Like that's not a thing.
I think there's some art showing them scaly and reptilian. Yes.
Generally, I mean, they usually are described as having almost human-like skin.
Yeah, just
They're really human in most ways, except slightly larger, and they
cut their faces off.
fuck themselves up. Which
It's
I
not
guess
even clear if their faces are off or they make their faces.
no, I think like they've got it. They're described as having a more prominent brow, and like they cut their nose off a lot, but they still typically do have noses if they don't, you know, chop.
I think they do the elongation of the skull thing. No?
They break out the calipers.
Oh,
That's
I
actually
got my calipers right over there. Don't give me an
the
excuse.
last point Corey made kind of bleeds into the discussion we had with the High Republic regarding like enemy was Clash of the Civilizations, now enemy basically the populist who is saying all the right things for all the wrong reasons. So, like, obviously, the real world bleeds into books.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing where like it's not necessarily a reflection of exactly what the ideology is that you're criticizing. It's like its own thing that's supposed to represent that, but also filtered through their understanding of that ideology, right? Because it's yeah,
I would have liked Marchion Rowe to be more of a general populist instead of like I feel like he's a populist among space pirates.
I think you haven't read the third wave, and in the third wave he goes like full 100% popular.
Yeah, the last one I read was
it's actually really interesting. Like all the talk is about the rights of the people of the outer planets. That
yeah,
the
I did
Jedi
read
and-
that. Yeah, like I read the exclusion zone one.
occlusion. I mean, you read the first one, but the second one has more of the like
Yeah, I
things
didn't
are
read the
already
second one.
established.
Yeah.
I think the second one was better than the.
I did like the failed attack on the occlusion zone.
They
I
had
thought we
Again,
might get an occlusion
we
zone
have
reference.
we have the same problem with Enjoy and High Republic. Like because of the way Star Wars is, you constantly have to invent ways of not having Jedi or having Jedi and having some kind of limitation on the Force, right?
Mhm.
And like in that regard, like it's both like the strength of Star Wars and its weakness because you have to constantly have limitation on the Force. You have to constantly put limits on the Jedi, otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
It's not into the conflict. It's not there.
Yeah, how do you not have Luke Skywalker come in and kick everyone's ass on the
Well,
first day?
in the first books, Luke is like, if I do that, there will be bad things happen,
Mhm.
and then he forgets about it.
I think Luke's moral quandaries in NJO are much less convincing than like the background of why he's on Octo.
Okay,
I never had a problem with Luke's Octo. Like
like
of all the things I didn't like,
Acto makes
nine-
sense. Like
episode eight-
the event already happened. He basically
Yeah.
made a mistake, and the Jedi Order is destroyed. Like it's basically not what's going on at the start of the NGO, right? At the start of the NGO, the idea is like he has some kind of not prophecy, but some kind of vision that his aggressive action might lead Galaxy to the edge.
That's Jason.
Am I confusing it?
Jason's the one that has the vision of everything being on this tipping point, and then it's
Okay.
like at Duro where it goes one way or the other. But Luke is like, oh, how do I control? Like, how do I make sure the Jedi don't become Vader again? But like, it's also ultimately just resolved as like, it's book 14, so
Maybe
I can
they
start
will.
doing stuff now. But
Maybe they
also,
will
I'm
become
leaving.
Vader.
I got a funny notification from YouTube that I'm just cracking up at. It says pronouns are now available on YouTube, as if like before now you couldn't refer to yourself or you couldn't use pronouns. It was like
I was.
we've made pronouns legal.
Where did you get it?
I
It's like
appreciate the effort.
send like email.
I just turned. I opened my dashboard and it's
It's in the
Thank you.
studio.
yeah.
I need to see that.
Thank God I can refer to
Or
Revan as
Discovery.
he or she, depending on my playthrough.
Oh, we exclusively use they, I think, for the Exile and Revan currently in text, and I'm waiting for the complaints to come through.
Woke nonsense.
But yeah. So any other thoughts we had? So pro or con or pro or against the tonal shift that we get from NJO through Fate of the Jedi that we're going to be talking about a lot in the next 10 years.
So just one thing that I think I brought it up like a few months ago, maybe a year ago, when we guys talked. I would pay not good money, but like okay money to someone who takes all legend books and turns them into like, let's say, 30 book series by cutting and combining stuff. And I feel
There's
like
just this
at
5 chapters where Luke is fucking a computer for some reason.
and I will be honest, I think that's what Disney should do. They can make like crazy bucks by basically releasing all of the legends as a one long series of like 30 books. If they want to do that, that would be like really good money maker.
I think they're making decent money on the Essential Legends collection, given
Yes, they
how
that's
many.
that's where my
That's
idea
so
started.
low effort. I mean,
Yeah.
the audiobooks can't be low effort, but I
No.
mean,
Somebody has told me that
until they get Mark
they
Thompson's
don't
fucking
even
voice
edit
AI.
them again. Like the books are just released as is.
I want to check. I want to listen to the Courtship of Princess Leia and see if they fixed the name of the Iron Fist. Because remember, it was called the Sovereign
Mm-hmm.
in one of the audiobooks. I want to see if
Yeah.
they fixed that.
There's a bunch of like lore breaking stuff in the coach, right?
Oh, that was just in the audiobook. They used the wrong name for the Superstar Destroyer.
Was it the English audiobook or was it, I think it was a different language audiobook.
No, I'm pretty sure it is the English one. Albeit it's a short. It's the old audiobooks. It's 3 hours long. So like they're different because they will just summarize like the what's it called? The abridged audiobooks aren't just like they don't just cut things. They actually will summarize things as well. Like in Star by Star, the abridgment is like the Yuuzhan Vong took Coruscant.
Okay.
By the way, it literally happens at the end. It's like, oh yeah, well this was happening. The Yuuzhan Vong took Coruscant.
Sick.
Okay.
Yeah, hope you like fucking around on this world ship.
It is funny that like the end result of the Essential Legends collection is that everything except the NJO, Fate of the Jedi, and Legacy of the Force are actually essential.
I mean, they could get to it some.
I
Probably
asked
won't.
them, and like I said, like, is there a chance that like, oh, if I doubt you're gonna do all of the NJO, but would there be a chance that like Traitor gets turned into an Essential Legends collection book on its own? And the response I got was like, oh, we can't do all of them, or else it's not essential. Like, okay, that doesn't answer my question because I
Was that Pablo on Twitter back in the day, or Leland, or
no, this
what's his name?
was with the editor.
That editor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck that guy. No, I'm joking, for real.
But
yeah,
that was
Voices, have you guys read the book called Rogue Planet?
Yeah.
Yep.
Not
the
on the
one with
podcast.
Anakin and
Obi-Wan and they go
Obi-Wan on the Second, which again, there's like 10 plot points that get us nowhere.
Mhm.
Like this book is certainly non-essential. Like you can like discard that book immediately.
Wasn't that one of the newest wave?
Did they release that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think they initially did intend the Essential Legends collection to be more, like more exclusive or more selective, rather. But I don't know. I feel like we got Survivors, like we got some really random ones.
We got Dawn of the Jedi, Into the Void.
Yeah, we
Kenobi,
got Rogue Planet,
Death
Survivors Quest.
Troopers.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like they might just. I feel like maybe they weren't intending because like the first Essential Legends collection was like Thrawn and like is the Old Republic Fatal Alliance.
Every Old Republic book is done.
Yeah.
Revan, Deceive, Fatal Alliance, Annihilation, and Knight Errant, which I think is every book from that period, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I do feel like they're going to like why would they stop?
Yeah. I feel like I saw something about Rogue Planet being one of the next ones.
I just saw it on the list. Yeah, they're doing Rogue Planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and
insane.
Dark Lord, that'll be a
that's
good
like
one.
the most random book you can do.
I think Rogue Planet is mostly a thing that NJO fans go to be disappointed when they realize it's not as connected as they think it's going to be.
Yeah.
There is one final question from Joel. What is the impact of NJO to this day?
I gotta pee. I'll be right back.
The impact is that it makes Justin go to the bathroom. Ilkin, any lasting impacts of NJO that you can point to?
I think I talked about it with my wife on one of our first dates. And the fact that
NJO?
She like was asking about books. We were talking about books, and I don't know why, but I kind of brought up the 19 book. What was the longest series? Something like that. And I think I just I was on one of the last Wheel of Time books, which is 15 books or 16 books. And like I said that, okay, I actually read a longer series at some point in the past. The fact that she didn't like dump me then and there is a proof that love exists.
Yeah. When I was introduced to Dana, like friends introduced us, and she was told I was a YouTuber, and it had also come up that I played guitar, so she assumed that I had a music channel. So I don't know if she had found out from the
Unfortunately,
start that it
no.
was that it was a Star Wars gaming channel and then a Star Wars lore channel. I think yeah, that would have been done.
As I said, love exists. Real love
And
is out there.
Vornsker wants you to pee for him while you're in there.
Oh, I did. Don't worry.
Should we like tape it or just
I already did it. Don't worry.
Like Scotch tape kind of tape or film kind of tape?
film kind of tape?
Okay.
I don't need my piss tapes getting out. Thanks
no.
very much.
Yeah.
My Russian piss tapes. My Yvathan piss tapes.
Ivritans are Russian?
Mm,
No.
I
no,
don't.
No spar. It's not
they're like
Vladimir
Indian.
Putin.
Indian, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't
think so.
know. I don't know what kind of caricature they were.
Which brown person?
So you will something I would say you would
Which
find
brown
really
person is
really
gonna be evil
interesting.
in today's Star Wars book?
So you guys probably have seen the news that what's his face was killed by Vader.
Donald
Watto?
Trump. Oh
no,
yeah.
no.
Speaking of
Uh,
racial stereotypes,
What's his face? Like
Watto.
Yeah,
blanking.
Watto
Water, yeah.
in
And like
a pod race?
for the long no afterwards, like after the purge,
Yeah.
I think, or during the purge, something like that. So
Yeah.
I remember when I was watching the Phantom Menace for the first time, I thought that Water is a caricature for the Latin American.
No, he's definitely
But
like
then someone told me
Jewish.
that he's Armenian caricature.
I think he's supposed to be. Well, he's not. He
Not
always came
supposed to
off.
be.
Yeah, I think he's most commonly. Yeah, I'm not gonna say supposed to. I think he's most commonly identified as a Jewish
Okay.
stereotype with Listen, I'm not saying that this is the stereotypes. You know what? Look it up yourselves. I'm not gonna do
The
it.
thing with the prequels is that every alien species becomes a stereotype, and George clearly had stuff in mind when he did this. But then when everyone was like, "Hey, man, this is kind of racist," he said, "Actually, you're all the racists for thinking that." So he's not very clear on which stereotypes he was acting on.
So I have a question. Do you guys think that George Lucas have read NGO?
Absolutely not.
One book.
No, he has not. There is zero chance he has ever read a single Star Wars novel. He did not even read.
Really?
If anything, Splinter the Mind's Eye,
Yes.
just so that he knew what he was going to make his first money on. By the time Heir to the Empire comes, maybe he fucking accidentally saw some Marvel comics at some point. But by the time Heir to the Empire came along, if Timothy Zahn walked up to him and said, "Hey, I wrote this book in your universe," he would take the book, light it on fire in front of him, and piss on it to put it out.
Say piss tapes, yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
like, who cares? You're right, but like, you are kind of sound like a Twitter user who needs to make rent for this month, because like that is true, but like that doesn't mean they're bad. They're
No,
bad.
No.
I know you're not saying that, but like,
I'm just curious. Like people always discuss it, like George Lucas' involvement, his original vision, blah blah blah, etc. That's why I'm curious. Like, w- did they get at least any direction? You know?
They got they got
direct-
yes or no
someone would
answers
knock
on stuff.
on his
Yeah.
office and be like, "Hey, do you think the Chewbaccas?" They'd probably just say Chewbaccas. Do you think the Chewbaccas had regular dicks or dog dicks? And be like, "Yeah, they got dog dicks. Make sure they get that right."
Because like it was definitely him that said
Yeah.
the Anakin being the new hero is too similar to the prequels, kill Jason instead. Like, but it's not because he had some big insight into the story of NJO that he cared about. It was because like Well, that guy's name is very similar to my other character's
And
name.
final question: do you think he appointed Filoni as his next in line because he was too tired to answer questions?
Probably.
I think he wanted someone who's got like. I think they're both just weird in their own ways. Like
Dave actually
like,
reads that shit. I don't care.
let's make that. Let's get the furry up here to distract them. Also, I just googled Watto Jewish, and Andy Saccone himself, who provided the voice of Watto, stated that Watto is not Jewish.
Okay, since he says that, very
But he
good.
said that I love how he says that he's not Jewish. Not that the character like is not based. He's not like Watto himself may be based on Jewish stereotypes, but Watto is not practicing at least.
Non-orthodox. Okay.
Yeah.
We're really off track here.
Yeah. Anything else with the NJO before we sign off and move on? It's not like we're never going to talk about NJO again because it's going to be very relevant to Dark Nest and Legacy of the Force and all that stuff. But it's
Okay, I got one question. If you guys
okay.
can think of this, is there any bit of lore, anything introduced in the New Jedi Order, which has made the New Jedi Order first, which has made its way over to canon?
Oh,
Almost.
Yeah, I was
almost.
trying to- What?
The Yuuzhan Vong were almost in the Clone Wars, and then they
Yeah,
would have been
but
canon. We were
they
this
weren't.
close to
Oh.
greatness.
How? In
What?
what context?
They had fucking animatics of them. They were gonna be
but,
used
like,
for something.
what was the story?
I don't know. I don't remember. They might have said at some point. But like the Vong were circling the galaxy at that point. It was
It was a
a
Dave
thing.
Filoni thing. Yeah, it was a Dave Filoni thing.
Okay.
Dave got a
There's
cut
gotta
of
be
any
something.
fucking book they sold for sure. But I was trying to think, like, what new? I guess, like, you could say the planets of like I looked and I think like Cern
Nah.
Pedal has
But
made
that
its way
doesn't
to
count.
canon, but that doesn't really count.
If it's just like a
Yeah.
name on a map, I don't
Good
think so.
question, right?
So KOTOR was released after the first New Jedi books, right? New Jedi
Yeah.
Order books.
Yeah.
Battle
Order was
droids.
released almost after all of them because it was,
What's-
or no, it was like near the end because it was 2002, right?
What is the name of the battle droid in KOTOR?
HK-47.
HK, yeah. Do you think like that is like inspired by?
No, I
Battle
don't think
droids?
so. But there is a there is a Yuuzhan Vong reference in that game. Mandalore or what's his name tells a story about them. Canderous.
The
Right?
context
Corey, it's Canderous, isn't it?
was an X-Files like episode of the Clone Wars with Star Wars and the Vong. An alien abduction story. Man, if we could have got Vergere in live action, or not in live action, in animation, that would have been fun.
Like that's an option. Like Vergere's species. I wonder if I feel like
Bosch.
I feel like the Fosh have made their way into a comic book, but other than that, like I'm trying to think of any technology or anything that was introduced in or any ships even.
Yeah, there is a Foch in the High Republic,
Yeah.
or in Age of Republic, Obi-Wan Kenobi 1.
But emailers, that's a good question to think about before next episode. If you can think of something introduced during the New Jedi Order, whether it's a technology, anything other than a planet, let us know. Let us know.
Let us know.
I have another question.
Get on board.
Which event that was in the New Jedi Order but wasn't dropped, you think they should have kept the legend?
Which event from New Jedi Order was dropped but should have been kept?
Yeah.
Like
Because
a
I have
plot
the
point
answer.
that was dropped, or like a cut piece of content from NJO?
It was the thing that already happened, basically. That's
Okay.
the thing that was on the
Coruscant
page.
should not have been restored.
Yeah, that was my idea. Like when it happened, I felt like it's a very good way to change the status quo and have something new, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I even, when they introduced Zonama Sekot, I even thought that somehow Zonama Sekot and Yuuzhan Tar can merge in a way, you know? Create some kind of like transformed like planet. And for me, it made sense because that would have changed status quo in the galaxy and made it much more interesting.
Keep Zone MSC caught in the Coruscant system with the Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah,
Just like
something
home.
like that.
I think losing Coruscant as the clear center of the galaxy could have been a good democratizing moment. Kind of like in Vector Prime, like throughout the series, you kind of know there's 6 people in the galaxy who can do anything. To the point that like when we were talking about Vector Prime, I think all 3 of us were saying like, "Oh, who is this mayor guy? He must be someone special. Who was it? Who was it?" And
Yeah.
it's no, it's just some guy could also do something useful, and that's something Star Wars kind of needs more of, or needed more of. But
Still needs, I think.
Yeah, that dude was cool. I like that guy.
now he's
There's still
dead.
theories about him though.
There's always
Like-
theories about him.
Like if
Boba
you go
Fett.
back to Vector Prime, what's her face? The scientist chick.
Danny Quee.
By the end of the series, she becomes like a 5-time Nobel winner, 10 PhD person. Like it's
It's just
I don't know.
you're a scientist, meaning
Yeah,
she's a fucking
yeah.
astronomer. Now work on this biology project with us.
Like, if you are so good, why are you like on the edge of galaxy in like completely defunded project?
That's where all the
Haven't
scientists
you
are
ever
right
seen
now.
Contact? She's basically what's her name in Contact, where she's
Like,
like
Jodie
she just
Foster?
Jodie Foster. She's fucked with aliens. She likes it.
Okay.
You know what the best part of this is? I get to read all of the NJO again this year for something else.
Wouldn't
I
be me.
I
I'm done
don't
for
know
at least 5
why,
years.
but good for you, I guess.
Mhm. So I literally just finished reading Vector Prime and started on Dark Tide, so it's all back fresh in
For
my
your
mind.
NGO will never end, basically.
Yes. Have no
I am
fears, we'll have NJO for years.
am I invited for Darkness discussion?
Well, my next question for you is going to be what future books would you like to come back for?
Did you guys already discuss Lost Stars?
We have not discussed Lost Stars. We've
Because
discussed discussing Lost Stars.
I really want to talk about sex with Justin. Like that's my point in life. I want
We
to
can just
do
have our
that.
usual phone call.
Well, I
Or
think
about sex, not have sex.
I'm just tired of paying Justin, you know.
Yeah, okay.
I think the idea was that the next book we did was going to be Lost Stars.
Yeah.
And you can do it on February 14th, right?
That is actually.
That's how it
I mean,
works out?
That's a
February
Friday.
13th would be the next, like in 2 weeks. That would be next book episode.
Mhm.
Because we could do February 13th with Lost Stars, and then
Just give me an excuse to goon over a Star Wars book, and I'm down.
27th would be so Mask of Fear comes out on the 25th.
Okay.
So either that week or the next week we should do Mask of Fear.
Say we should do it the next week to give it some people time to read.
Yeah. So I don't know if we should do Lost Stars in 2 weeks and maybe try to fit a different shorter book in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Sounds good to me.
because how long are the Han Solo trilogy books? There's a bunch of like little short books that we've kind of not done that we could probably fit in somewhere too.
Yeah.
That aren't just young adult ones.
How
Those
long
aren't
is Splinter the
those.
Mind's Eye?
I think that one's actually kind of long.
No, I'm pretty sure.
199. That's doable.
So we could do that then.
Could do that.
That's a bonkers book, from what I remember.
How long is
Yeah.
Rogue Planet? If this is
We got kyber crystals with an A and an I and a B and a U and 2 R's, from what I remember.
Rogue Planet, it is 350. How is Rogue Planet 350? Okay, so
It's a boring book.
we'll say on the 13th we're doing Lost Stars, and on the 6th of March we're doing Reign of the Empire with somewhere in there another short book. What's next week? What's happening next week? Anything happening next week?
Let's figure it out.
Did we have a
Later.
comic book series going on? I don't remember. I don't think we did. Like we finished NJO and that was the comics we were doing.
Yeah.
All
I want
right.
to do Shadows of the Empire at some point, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure
Okay.
it out and we'll let you guys know.
We'll have something scheduled for next week. Ilkin will be officially joining us for Lost Stars in 2 weeks, and then if he wants to talk about more Star Wars sex, every single book of Dark Nest.
Just
I
bug
like
fucking.
I like animal.
And Jesus Christ, not even relevant. He just volunteered it.
I mean, we already knew that, but now the people do too.
Oh,
Yeah.
keep it in the DMs.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right.
Please
Thank you.
Please don't clip that.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you to the NJO authors for writing the books. We all greatly enjoyed them. And now we're done.
Live long
Bye,
and
everyone.
prosper.
For a second, I thought Ilkin was about